Good afternoon, everyone. Gareth Presch, founder of the World Health Innovation Summit, and I'm joined by Bogdan from National Academy of Social Prescribing, and we are delighted to welcome you to the international student launch of a framework around global social prescribing. It's a pleasure to be here with you in Cumbria virtually. We're joined by colleagues all over the world. If you have a question that you want to put to any of our panelists today, please do put it in the chat and we'll put that to the audience. But let's start where we want to finish. And I just wanted to kind of emphasize where we're going in the future and the opportunities. It really is about ourselves coming together and working collectively as a group. And you know, social prescribing can be that leverage. We face enormous challenges. We've just had the COP26 and we've all witnessed, you know, COVID-19 and the challenges that that's presented to our health service. But while that's gone on, we've also seen how people have come together and faced those challenges. You know, the development of the vaccine, for example, has been just a phenomenal piece of work. And I think as we move to the future, we have an opportunity, and particularly the students, the medical students of the future, have an enormous opportunity to bring their collective knowledge and also their energy to the fore. And then being mentored, I mean, Dr. Mike Dixon there is an absolute pioneer in the work he's been championing in the UK. And he joined us on, you know, when we had our first seminar or webinar with students around the world. And to share that wisdom that Mike has to the next generation is absolutely crucial. And then we have Bogdan, who's been championing this for many years, working with James and that at the National Academy of Social Prescribing, demonstrating best practice and then scaling that around the world with our partners. And we're going to learn today about how we can do that and also welcome you know, those partners with open arms, how we can collaborate and work together to bring those solutions that we have, because we do have the solutions. It's very important to understand that. I think at COP and definitely within the conversations that we're having around the world, the problem is actually getting those solutions scaled and also bringing our collective wisdom together to get that to happen. So this you know, today, this launch, this framework that we've put together, Bogdan has and Emily, who works with WHIS here, have put enormous amount of work into this, collaborating with agencies all over the world. And we're extremely grateful for that work. And what I'm going to do now is effectively just hand over to Bogdan, and then Bogdan can run through these presentations that we have. And I hope you enjoy today's launch. If you have any questions, please do put them in the chat box, and we'll put it to our audience, to our panelists. And most importantly, let's look to the future and how we can build better after the pandemic and work collectively. Bogdan, over to yourself, and we're very much looking forward to hearing from you and colleagues around the world at how we can do this.
Thank you so much, Gareth. It's such a pleasure to be here with you and with colleagues all around the world. I know there's colleagues tuning in from Australia, where it's close to midnight. And there's also people in Singapore who are tuning in very late, and we're very grateful for you being here with us. It's a point in time which makes me feel very grateful and proud of the students that have been involved in this from the beginning and from the start. I remember a few years back, probably 6-7 years back, when we started asking ourselves, what can we do as medical students? And many of us have since graduated, but the aim and the mission remains the same, and that of which is to ignite a true social and well-being revolution across the world amidst the future generation of healthcare professionals, not just medical students, but more widely allied healthcare professionals, nurses, midwives, and the future doctors of tomorrow, of course. But it's fantastic to see the movement that's been initiated not only within the UK. I think we were very lucky to have great mentors in here, but we know that around the world the movement is taking shape and form all around in Canada, Australia, Netherlands, and Singapore, Hong Kong, Japan. And you'll get to hear from a fantastic panel of speakers shortly. And we do encourage you to join the conversation, be it via Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube. And do post your comments here. We'll try and tackle a few questions towards the end of this. But I hope you'll be as inspired as we all are by the future generation joining us today from more than 7 different countries from around the world. I think looking back, it's very interesting because social prescribing, personalized care, and the idea of listening and truly connecting with our patients and finding out what truly matters to them, as well as empowering them to take responsibility where possible and working with those most striking and most impacted by social determinants of health, and ensuring we support those which have been most affected and impacted by health inequalities, is not a nice thing to do. It's really a must thing to do. And working as part of the COVID workforce and the frontline workforce over the past 2 years as a junior doctor, I really felt on my skin something that I thought I would never imagine. It induced a sense of fear, and I'm not talking about the pandemic here. The sense of fear that was generated for me was that idea of the workforce struggling at the moment. I saw my colleagues, including myself, being promised we would finish at 5 o'clock and we would always finish at 10 or 11 o'clock. And we would not have enough doctors, we would not have enough nurses. And the scary thing for me is when we look at the statistics, knowing that by 2050, you'll have a double in the amount of people living over the age of 50. So you have people piling up more chronic diseases than ever. We have great technology. It's enabling us to live longer. But what use is that technology if it doesn't reach the people who need it most? We cry for funding, and yes, we get billions in funding, but how do we make sure the billions in funding reach the people in need and the people who are lagging behind? How do we not just widen the inequality gap, and how do we ensure that we take people with us? And I believe that the principles of personalized care, value-based care, and social prescribing, and through sustainable development goals that have been set up, we have the power as the future generation to change the system from within. So if you think about it, when I was in A&E and I was firefighting, when I was putting plasters on the bottle that the healthcare system is at the moment, and one patient comes in, one patient comes out, and I pick another plaster and I stick another plaster there, what I'm really doing is I'm firefighting this revolving door, a fix shop, repair shop mentality that we've built over the years since it's been set up. And when the healthcare system was set up, it was set up for the right reasons to cater for acute infections, trauma, and problems. But at the moment, we are facing a backlog of more than biomedical problems. We are looking here at a true biopsychosocial element, and we're good as doctors and healthcare professionals to cater for the biomedical because we learn algorithm and we know what to do. If X, then Y. If high blood pressure, then stack the pills. If diabetes, then go in with the insulin and so on. But we're not so good to cater for the psychosocial. And so the upfront investment that we're talking in here by trying to get students of today and future healthcare professionals of tomorrow to learn about those principles is we are saying we stop the firefighting. We stop the acute mindless running around the hospital for once, and we look at an investment for the next 5 years. We're not going to see a change in the next 5 years, but the students of today, one at a time, will become professionals of tomorrow, and they will ask the right questions. They will ask what truly matters to the patients. They will start involving patients within the local community, supporting them not just biomedically by stacking up the pills, but by supporting them to connect to local activities, empowering them to take ownership, control of their life where possible, and then support those most struck by social determinants of health and health inequalities, to connect to other people locally and to put health back at the core of our community, because that's what we all used to do in tribes, evolutionary really, in that sense as well. Anyway, I will start rambling because I will let the students do the talking, and our partners from around the world. And I'm very proud and grateful to have here with us Dr. Lee and Adeline from Singapore, who are part of the Global Alliance, and we are deeply grateful for the student involvement around in Singapore. So for those of you joining us from across the pond, a warm welcome to you, and thank you for being here. And I hope you'll enjoy this special webinar. Today is a big day because we're really launching an important document that many of you have contributed to. It's a framework for supporting students around the world and join up forces and connect with each other to power this idea of person-centered care and social prescribing. So what I will do is I will hand over now to Dr. Lee and Adeline, and we will take some questions throughout, and we'll invite the rest of the students in a second. Thank you so much for being here, Adeline and Dr. Lee.
Go ahead, Dr. Lee.
Hi, greetings from Singapore, and so happy to meet all the advocates of social prescribing on this platform. We'll take this opportunity to share. We will share what we are doing in Singapore and what we have been doing. So firstly, social prescribing, this is our take on it, and I think this is quite universal. I mean, we have all been trying to improve health by working on the 20%, but we realize that there's greater determinants beyond that, and that is this 80% that we talk about, mostly in the area of socio-economic factors, physical environment, and health behaviors. So I think the question that we ask ourselves is, how do we distribute healthcare resources? Do we use the principle of equality? That means giving it to everybody based on what we feel they are entitled to. Or do we really go by the principle of equity? That means giving resources based on need. And I think one way to understand need is really to understand the social determinants of health. So the next slide. Now, social determinants of health, what is it? And there's lots of people trying to come to grapples with it. But essentially, there are a few domains that we talk about. But more importantly is that now we realize that it's not just a matter for policy makers to solve, but at the individual level through social prescribing, we can actually address these issues of social determinants of health. So the next slide will show us that there are three main areas that we can work on. But I think essentially the key part that social prescribing addresses is the socio-economic factors that we want to improve for the patients. So we realized that it's very important to change the mental model of our colleagues. And we want to start early by teaching our students. So my colleagues and I have designed a program called the Community Care Module. Next slide, please, where we try to teach the social determinants of health. So the objective is to start very early in the first year of medical school at Duke NUS Medical School. We teach them about concepts such as patient-centeredness and to have a community orientation. We share with them the ideas of what is social determinants of health and health equity. And we want them to follow the journey of a patient as they experience the care through the system. And we bring them out on field trips to the community, which is very important. They need to experience. We bring them to a community of need near our hospital. And we visit elderly patients who are alone, socially isolated, and how they struggle to cope to improve their own healthcare through their best effort. And we also expose them to the multidisciplinary team meetings to make care plans. And also we give them a small mini project on asset mapping. So this is how our approach is. Now, if it works, I would like to share a short video because we had a field trip, but because of COVID, we have to move it online. So we have a virtual program which we would like to share with you if the technology holds up. Yeah, so this is just a very short video clip of what we've been trying to do. So over now to Adeline, who will just share with you what our approach is. So Adeline.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Yeah, thank you, Prof. Lee. So, so for our students that Prof. Lee actually mentioned earlier, so Elisa, Pelsha, and Melissa, Michelle will actually be sharing on this in a short while after we've talked about it. So I thought I would give everybody a sense of social prescribing in a Singapore setting. So what we've done is actually that we've introduced this in an inpatient setting, and we actually introduced this in the community hospital setting. So what we actually have is that we have patients who come in quite old. Yeah, so if you look at our slide over here, the age is about 75 on an average, and they come in for various purposes, mainly for rehabilitation, that's about 80%, and then for subacute, we have about 14.4%. And because of their conditions, they stay with us for 33 days, and that's a pretty long time. And we feel that there's this window of opportunity for our patients to actually spend with us. And we've also got that time to engage them in areas that we could outside of biomedical spheres that Dr. Bogdan actually talked about earlier as well. And if you look at the level of subsidy, quite a lot of our patients are actually on government subsidy. So given the profile, their biomedical profiles, and also social profiles, there's a lot that we can do for them for social prescribing. Yeah. So these were pre-COVID days. It was really full of different activities. So on the left, you can see this is a Chinese tile game. It's called Mahjong. A lot of the elderly actually enjoy it. Drumming on the right, and you can see them reminiscing about the vintage items that Singapore actually has. So because of these patient engagement activities, it actually gives us a very natural window to engage them, and also to socialize them in a very natural setting, so that we can actually find out a bit more about their social determinants and also their motivation and interests as we link them to the community. But what happened during the start of COVID was that we understand and also recognize that technology was a new social determinant. And so what we started was actually e-social prescribing. That was particularly useful for our elderly patients, and they found it very useful because as they needed to use technology more often than not, because of social distancing. It's a total paradox to actually social prescribing in the case of COVID, and for contact tracing purposes as well, and then to contact their loved ones. So they felt it was extremely helpful for them, and for that, we are also very humbled and privileged to have won the best international social prescribing initiative for Singapore in the Social Prescribing Awards earlier this year. So in the time of COVID, we actually also looked a lot at building capabilities of social prescribing. So this is actually a certificate course that we've actually worked together with our national training framework called Skills Future. Yeah, so this is a course that we've actually referred to many different peers around the world that have actually started on competencies in social prescribing, including NHS England, Health Education England, on various courses as well. So I think because of the extremely good work that other peers around the world have actually done, and then we build on them and also refer to the local context, and we believe that this various modules would actually help in building competencies for our well-being coordinators. So this well-being coordinators is actually a term that we call for link workers. Yeah. So I think in every country, there's a lot of local contextualization, but ultimately, I think building competencies for the link workers, whichever name that we call them, is important, and this would help in growing social prescribing as we bring it to further heights. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Adeline and Dr. Lee, for that. That's a fantastic presentation and a great insight into the work being currently undergoing and in the past as well in Singapore. It's wonderful to see so many of your students interested in this. And what struck me most from your presentation is that idea of catching them whilst they're young as well, and in the beginning when their mindset and values are being shaped and being formed, which I think is crucial. I think getting students in year 1, year 2, and as they go through their training to understand more about social determinants of health and health inequalities is crucial, because it sits right there with the anatomy principles, sits right there with the other things they will learn along the way, and they're slowly being converted to something that is, as we know, very, very important. But we're now going to move on to the superstars of the show, really, I think, and together with the other students have put together the document that we are about to launch today, and we'll share the link on social media shortly as well. But Rachel and Sonia, who are tuning in from the US, good morning, Rachel and Sonia. It's lovely to have you here with us, and we'll go over to you to hear what you're going to present to us and how the new document that you and the rest of the students have developed is going to help unite us all provide better care for patients in the future.
Good morning and hello everyone. Let me share my screen and then we can start discussing.
Brilliant. And whilst Rachel is sorting out the tech as well, let us know, Rachel, if you encounter any troubles. There we go. Brilliant. All done. Over to you, Rachel.
Wonderful. So, hi everyone. My name is Rachel.
I'm Sonia.
And today we're going to present the international framework that we're so excited to share with the world to get students more involved in the social prescribing movement.
So as you'll have the opportunity to hear from many of the incredible speakers on this call, social prescribing is really taking off among the students at both medical schools and allied health professional schools across the United Kingdom. There are student champions who are really thinking about how they can make social prescribing a reality in the future of their own work. And this is also kicking off all over the world, as you'll have the opportunity here as well. And students are sort of promoting social prescribing within their curricula. They're raising awareness about how they can get involved in social prescribing through their line of work. And so what Rachel and I are working on, or have finished now working on, is a framework that sort of taps into a lot of the experiences that these students have had in building these frameworks and trying to share them with other students who may be interested in sort of doing the same wherever they may be. You can go to the next slide, Rachel. So there was a sort of companion guide to the one we've created, the Global Social Prescribing Alliance playbook, which is designed for general stakeholders interested in promoting social prescribing. But our framework really recognizes that students are uniquely situated to advance social prescribing. They're at the very start of their careers. They're sort of perched just outside of the healthcare field, prepared to enter it, but haven't quite entered it yet. And that presents its own challenges, but just as many, if not more, opportunities. They have a real stake in what healthcare will look like decades down the line, and they also have connections at their fingertips with other like-minded students and with experienced professionals, professors, clinicians. And the framework really describes how to tap into that unique position to advance healthcare and social prescribing. The 7 steps that we've sort of created help do that, and Rachel's going to kind of go into them.
Right, so we've basically created a document that distills all of the kind of opening maneuvers of starting a social prescribing student program and student movement into largely 3 main chunks. The first being thinking very deeply and familiarizing yourself with the concept and the model of social prescribing, and then deeply reflecting on what that could look like in your local context and within your national healthcare system. And then the next step is, how do you get people involved, and which of your peers and professors and local community leaders would be aligned with the mission already and more eager to become a part of it. And finally, taking action. So with the help of all of these wonderful people you might hear from today, and the UK Student Scheme at large, and Gareth at WHIS at large, setting up an introductory social prescribing webinar in your country, in your region, so that you can get an audience, gain a platform, and really launch a movement within your country.
And one thing that we really hoped to emphasize, both as students ourselves and having worked with so many students in putting together this framework, is that In setting up a scheme or program for social prescribing from the ground up, what can be most powerful is uniting with those who are nearest to you. The students who share your principles, your values, who are interested in social prescribing, professors as well who are interested, and building that really strong core. At the same time, there is a support network beyond that core. And so a key piece of the framework involves being able to connect with the wider circles of social prescribing, both through the Student Champion Scheme in the United Kingdom and with others. And you'll get to hear more about a program specifically dedicated to building those wider connections very soon. So Rachel, do you want to close up?
Yep. So what comes next for us? The US student movement is very nascent and very new. And so we're hoping to also use the student framework that we've created here in the United States to build something from the ground up. And for us, that will look like developing it in an interest group at Harvard first, as that's where we're based. But we'll let Varshini discuss that in further detail in a few minutes. At large, we're really hoping that in the end, we can create this generation of healthcare students and the next generation of healthcare leaders who are already invested in social prescribing and who are already deeply connected to and integrated with the people who are in the institutions now, in the clinics, in the hospital systems, who are sympathetic to social prescribing and are already trying to build that infrastructure, so we can take advantage of this unique position that students have to drive the movement forward and motivate this kind of change. So as we do that, we're going to continue to ask, how can we lean on existing models of care that work? What social work models, what community health models, what healthcare workers and community volunteer groups would want to be involved in this, and how can they help shape it? And of course, always asking, how can we make this equitable and accessible?
As you can see, there are a slew of individuals and organizations that have supported this work, which speaks volume to the amount of support generally that social prescribing for student movements has behind it. And we're so excited that that can now be there to support other students in various countries around the world and setting up their own social prescribing programs. So my email is at the bottom of the screen. Rachel's is there too. Feel free to reach out. And there are also so many others who are there to support any students interested in getting this started wherever they may be. So thank you so much. We hope you'll take interest in the framework.
Thank you very much, both of you. It's exciting to see how the framework you're using is slowly gonna hopefully get more students from around the world to use it. But I think there are some students who are already using it. And now we're going to move on to Lavinia, who's going to touch a bit upon how we can support others who are just starting fresh in developing social prescribing champion programs around the world through the development of a buddy up program. And so Lavinia is the regional lead for Wales in terms of social prescribing student champions. Welcome, Lavinia. It's a pleasure to have you with us here. And we'll let you tell us about the buddy up program.
Hi there. I hope you can see my slides. So from the back of the International Student Framework, we also started to build together a social prescribing buddy up program. Mainly with the aim to assist new champion groups in other countries to network and find local and international supports, and pairing UK students with international students. We're using UK students, first of all, because we've had a bit of a head start compared to other countries. We're the first to admit we're by no means the experts in growing the local movements, but we do have experience on what has worked and what hasn't worked, especially amongst medical students. And this is information we'd like to share, and also hear about information from other student groups about how they're running as well. We'll also provide practical advice on how to use the framework and how to grow their champion movement, and mainly as a experience sharing exercise. So if you are a student, and this is not just medical students, it's all healthcare professional students as well, email us at spschemeinternational@gmail.com, because we'd love to grow our network of international students, essentially. One of the other things that we're focusing at the moment is that we're very much an English focused group in that English is all of our first or second languages. But we would like to help develop or reach out to countries where English is not their first language, essentially. So if anyone is interested in helping with that as well, please do contact us on the same email address. That'd be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lavinia. And we're hoping to pair up students one with another, essentially around the world, and have buddies that will mentor and support that knowledge exchange. So hopefully we can pair up a UK student with a Singapore student and unite the two groups and allow them to learn from each other, and do the same with the US and Australia and Canada. And hopefully, slowly, the Singapore students can then take on the mentorship, and we can allocate them to other buddies from around the world themselves as well. So you facilitate this large network of students from around the world. And we can also try and translate some of those concepts, like Lavinia was saying, which I personally think is crucial, because we are not reaching everyone that we should reach. And I know that students in Japan have already started doing that, because we know we can't expect everybody to use English as the language of our work. But now I'm really excited to tell you a bit more about the work we've done in the UK to grow champions, and you'll find out more about what a champion usually does. And I will move on to Sai, who's joining us. Sai, welcome here. It's such a pleasure to have you with us, and we are looking forward to hearing what the UK has been up to, and a few of the achievements that we're all very proud of.
So brilliant. Thank you so much for that introduction, Bogdan. I have tried to share my slides, but I'm having a little bit of difficulty. Would you be okay to share my slides, please? Thank you. That's brilliant. So hello, everyone. I'm absolutely delighted and honoured to be here as part of the launch of the International Framework. My name is Sai Ramesh, and I'm the International Co-Lead of the NHS Student Social Prescribing Scheme. I'm currently a fourth-year medical student, and I joined the scheme in 2019. I'm very proud to be part of the Student Social Prescribing Scheme. I think it's absolutely brilliant. The scheme was started around 5 years ago in 2016 with the vision of spreading the word about social prescribing across medical schools in the UK. This required enthusiastic student champions at each medical school to help empower medical students and teach them about the value of social prescribing in healthcare. Students have the opportunity to reach out to organisations in their local community and highlight the importance of link workers in the universal care of a patient. They can also be part of academic publications, presentations, and conferences. These champions are supported by regional leads who look after students from several medical schools. They provide them with help and guidance during their academic year. During my time in the scheme, I've been a student champion, a regional co-lead, and I am now the international co-lead. During this period, I've had the opportunity to be involved in a variety of exciting projects, such as conferences and presentations, and I've been able to teach other students about the importance of social prescribing. I've seen how students have embraced social prescribing as part of their holistic approach to healthcare. As the international co-lead, we are currently in liaison with countries all over the world, including Australia, North America, and Canada, to name a few, where we are helping to guide students to set up similar schemes in their area. The social prescribing scheme in the UK has been incredibly successful. We have delivered over 750 teaching sessions, engaged over 20,000 students, and had 3 national conferences, amongst many other accolades as detailed on the slide. It has been a privilege to be part of such a wide-reaching and impactful scheme. We are eager to have social prescribing schemes with allied health professionals and medical students all over the world. We hope that the international framework will form a backbone of creating similar schemes globally, and we hope that you'll join us and then help ignite these movements around the world in your own countries too. We're here to support you, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Sai. You're a superstar, and so is Joel and all the other students as part of the scheme who've contributed to the framework and who've put it together. And it's to say that Rachel, Sonia, Joel, and Sai have been at the core of getting that document out there. So for those of you looking at the document, it's all their work, and do enjoy it because they have put quite a lot of work into it, and we're hoping it will guide you all around. But now we're going to move on to Scotland, actually, and we have none other than Rania with us, or as we call her, Ree. Ree is a very enthusiastic student, as you'll see in a second what I mean, and is highly knowledgeable and a brilliant asset of our team. And it's wonderful to have you with us, Ree. Over to you, and tell us what's been happening and what you've got planned next.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Bogdan. Always a joy to be introduced by you. So yes, like Bogdan said, I'm Rania Fernandes, or as people call me, Ree. I'm a fourth-year medical student at the University of Dundee, and currently I am the Scottish Regional Lead for the Social Prescribing Student Scheme. So I'll tell you a little bit about what we've done in Scotland. And over the past few years, like Sai said, we set up in 2016, and the SP student scheme in Scotland is spread over 5 medical schools and has made some excellent progress over the past few years. So we've advocated for the inclusion of social prescribing teaching into the medical degree curriculum. We've researched links between the pandemic and its impact on social prescribing services nationally as well. Our passionate and enthusiastic champions also hosted the first ever Scottish Social Prescribing Conference this year, aimed at students and professionals across Scotland, to offer a common platform where we could each discuss our current progress and future plans. Through the work of some very dedicated partners, we are also able to offer this year social prescribing placements to first-year medical students at some universities. This helps them observe social prescribing in practice and is a method that has also been trialled by our Portuguese counterparts in Lisbon. It's a really exciting time as well at the moment, because the Scottish Social Prescribing Network has just been set up earlier this year. It's an organisation which is representative of the 8 social prescribing programmes that exist across Scotland. The Student Champion Scheme is also actively involved in the steering group to ensure that our views are heard and represented effectively. Our work in the future could involve the creation of education modules for healthcare professionals, which would help define who can make referrals, how to make these referrals, and identify the kind of patient that would benefit from social prescribing and would therefore warrant a referral. Personally, I'm quite passionate about patient education and have discussed the possibility of students contributing to resources to raise awareness among the public about social prescribing as a concept, as well as the services available in their respective communities. The addition of allied healthcare professionals into our scheme this year opens up a whole host of opportunities in terms of shared research and collaborative events. And so overall, the future is very bright for social prescribing in Scotland, both as a concept as well as for the student scheme. And events like this help us share ideas between regions and countries to learn, emulate, and improve our programs collectively. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Ree. And the future does certainly look very bright, because you're all very bright. So I think that's fair to say. Now we are taking a very short, actually, flight. It's normally a very long flight, but this one's short. And to Australia. So we've got Grace with us. Grace, thank you so much for tuning in. It's actually close to midnight where you are, I'm pretty sure, if it's not already midnight. But lovely to have you with us. Grace is a fantastic student, and together with Jasmine and with Sean and with all the other Australian friends that we've made over the years, has put together and ignited a movement probably stronger than ours was in the beginning, Grace. So I'm really curious to see where you're up to. And I know you've got the involvement of the Australian Medical Student Association, which we never actually had. So I'm curious to see where you're all up to. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was very pleased to be here. So thank you so much for having us and having me. So yes, I'm Grace. I'm a medical student at the University of Melbourne in Australia. And as Bogdan mentioned, this year we established the Social Prescribing Student Collective, which we found has been a really wonderful experience. So we started with conversations with the UK Social Prescribing Champions Scheme team about their program and how we could have set up something similar in Australia. And then, as Bogdan mentioned, we then approached the Australian Medical Student Association, who represent all the medical students in Australia, and they very kindly offered support to our program, which we found has been really important for us for growing our presence and our credibility. After we got the support of AMSA, we co-hosted a webinar with the UK Social Prescribing Champions Scheme team and the WHIS team in March of this year to introduce the concept of social prescribing and the sort of student group format to students in Australia, as we found that social prescribing was a pretty new concept for most people. Following the webinar, we then recruited a committee of 10 students, and throughout the year we've hosted a number of webinars, case series nights, and provided social media material involving local community members and experts who are practicing in social prescribing. We've had lucky enough to have students from all 19 medical schools in Australia being able to attend our events throughout the year, which has been fantastic. For this year, our main objective was to introduce the concept of social prescribing and to educate medical and allied health and public health students on how it can benefit healthcare. Another one of our main objectives was also to focus on building connections with local community organisations, including the Royal Australian College of GPs in Australia, the Consumer Health Forum, and a number of local primary health networks and other primary care organisations who have all been incredibly generous, and we found they've been really excited to support the future workforce in gaining a better understanding of social prescribing. Throughout the year, we also conducted a survey just to try and gain a greater understanding of how familiar students were with social prescribing, and also to find out how they wanted to hear a bit more about it to inform our education program for the year. So most survey respondents said that they had never heard the term social prescribing, but they had seen similar sort of principles used in some of their placements. So we found that the students were extremely excited about the opportunities that social prescribing offered, and a lot of them sort of were shocked that they'd never heard of the concept before. We also found that the majority of students really wanted to understand what social prescribing really looked like in practice and gain sort of practical skills. So in 2022, we're really hoping to continue to build on this work, including advocating for the inclusion of social prescribing in medical and allied health curriculum at universities in Australia. And we want to continue to expand our multidisciplinary team. We're also really looking forward to continuing working with local community organisations to provide opportunities in social prescribing, such as research opportunities, as well as some volunteering roles in local pilot programs that have been set up. So yeah, we're very excited for what the future holds, and very grateful for the support of the Social Prescribing Champion Scheme in the UK.
Thank you so much, Grace, and thank you for the fantastic update. We keep watching and can't wait to do some more of that work together and join forces moving forward. We're now moving to the US back again, but this time to another student at Harvard University. Varshini, the floor is yours, and we're curious to hear more about what you're doing with the students there.
Yes, of course. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Bogdan, for that introduction. Really appreciate it. I'm extremely honored to be here today at the launch of the International Social Prescribing Framework. It's such an incredible time, and so excited to see all the wonderful work that everyone has put in. My name is Varshini Odayar, and I'm a junior at Harvard. I'm studying neuroscience and social anthropology. And I've been working with Bogdan since 2020, and I'm currently working on building the Harvard Initiative on Social Prescribing, along with Rachel and Sonia. And so we're super excited to gather students at Harvard, especially because we've realized that so many students at our university have already been engaging in different forms of social prescribing, just under different names. And so we're really excited to be able to see how those interests can converge with one another. And so the approach that we've taken is by trying to start different roundtable conversations, just because we've noticed that there's so many students interested in having these discussions, but that there hasn't really been a space to do so as of yet. And so currently we're trying to converge these roundtable discussions to see how our different student groups are practicing social prescribing today, and how we can move forward in uniting those goals, as well as advocating for more students to join this movement and inspiring others. And so right now we're currently in the works of potentially thinking about planning a conference of some sorts for Harvard students and other students to get together to learn more about social prescribing, as well as advocate for more student champions to get involved in this international movement. And we're very passionate about advocating for social prescribing, not only to medical students, but also students who may have different interests, just because social prescribing is really important and really far-reaching and has implications for every citizen and not only students who are interested in medicine alone. And so we're excited to be able to reach out to students from all different disciplines to see how social prescribing interacts with all of our lives on a daily basis. So thank you so much, and we're excited to share more about how the initiative goes and working with other schools across the country. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Varshini, and thank you for being here with us. And we're now taking another flight to Japan, where we have two wonderful students. We've got Taiki and Asuka with us today. Thank you so much for both for tuning in and for the fantastic work that you've been leading. I funnily enough met both of them at Harvard, and Taiki presented their wonderful project on loneliness and connecting other in the local community in Japan. And so we'll go over to Taiki first and then to Asuka. Tell us what's happening and what your plans are.
Thank you, Bogdan, for the introduction. Hello, my name is Taiki from Sophia University. Currently, we're working with the help of Bogdan. We're trying to spread the idea of social prescribing in Japan. We're working with Horizon and Hold Prize, as well as some of the private universities such as Sophia, Waseda, and Keio, which we are super excited to work with. And right now, we're trying to translate some of the materials Bogdan shared with us. So in the future, we're trying to get over some of the language barriers we actually have. But in the future, we plan to host like a webinar around next year-ish time, and Asuka will also share you some of the activities she also worked at.
Hi, I'm Asuka. I'm a second-year medical student of Aichi Medical University in Japan. And as a medical student, I understand the importance of basic medical knowledge such as anatomy, physiology, and stuff to treat people's illnesses. However, I also believe that people's lifestyles have a significant role in people's well-being as well. And in Japan, the concept of social prescribing is not yet well known compared to other countries such as United Kingdom and Australia. So we, as Taiki suggested, we decided to launch a webinar within the university. However, we have encountered a difficulty with a language barrier since English isn't our native language. And some universities in Japan have students who are fluent in English, but that is not the case in my university. So we have realized that English shouldn't be and can't be the only language that we use to spread the concept of social prescribing. So our main focus now is to translate the concept in Japanese so that people can get familiarized with the concept. And we have made contacts with lecturers and professors who are interested in social prescribing, so we can increase the audience. And I hope this will help close the intergenerational gap that exists in Japan for approaching healthcare. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, both of you. And I'm sure we will hear that time and time again. And I think that language barrier is something that we didn't consider initially. It is something that we're working on. And with your support, we will develop better resources. So now I think we're closing the circle, going back to Singapore. And we have three wonderful students that will talk to you today. We're very grateful once again to Adeline and Dr. Lee for introducing us to you. We've got new friends now from across the pond. And we'll jump over to Michelle first. And then in turn, you'll introduce your colleagues as well. Welcome, all of you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bogdan. Hi, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to share our student initiatives with you. My name is Michelle, and I am a third-year MD student from Duke NUS Medical School in Singapore. And alongside me today, we have Paul and Alyssa, who will both be sharing in the later parts of this short presentation. So who exactly are we? Our student interest group was founded in 2017 to address population health needs, with a greater focus in recent years on the mental well-being of vulnerable groups within the community. And as a graduate entry medical school, we tap upon the diverse trainings of our students in both medical and non-medical fields, as well as the global experiences of our large international student body to come up with student initiatives. We also have existing collaborations with the local residency programs and a multidisciplinary team network on Facebook. And now I'll pass the time to Alyssa to take us through some of the shorter term goals that we are currently working toward.
Hello, thank you so much, Michelle, and thank you everyone. I think it's been a wonderful discussion, and I think in terms of short-term goals from Singapore, we recognize that we are relatively young as a student interest group. You know, everyone else has had this in motion for quite some time. And I think in a short-term goal at the beginning, we want to get up to speed with what everyone has been doing, what has worked and what hasn't, and also see how we can use that to kind of apply it to our local context. So we're thinking of maybe journal clubs and being very active in these buddy programs that have been suggested. And the next thing in a short term is also, we also recognize that, you know, when we reflect on our own society, we see that the concept of social prescribing in some ways has been manifested in bits and pieces here and there, but not quite articulated or streamlined towards you know, the synergy that social prescribing really requires and the focus that it has. So we are looking into how to tap into our student populations and its diversity, see how we can consolidate it and streamline it in the near future. And now Paul will bring us through the long-term goals that we have.
Yeah, thank you, Alyssa. So in addition to the short-term goals that Alyssa just spoke about, our team also has 3 long-term goals that we would like to achieve over the course of the next couple of years. Our first goal is to contribute to and further the body of literature on social prescribing by conducting student-led research projects and implementing evidence-based interventions. We also hope to eventually integrate social prescribing into the Singapore healthcare system by raising awareness about it amongst healthcare professionals and our peers. And eventually, we hope to collaborate and engage with a community of like-minded students to exchange ideas and work towards similar goals. So we're really ready for the buddy program. And so what's next for us now? Firstly, we'd like to connect with international student leaders, some of whom are present here, and to explore existing programs and experiences. We also would like to learn and apply asset-based community mapping, as Professor Lee spoke about earlier today, to the local context. And finally, we want to connect with local organizations and link workers here in Singapore to see how we can best support the existing infrastructure through social prescribing initiatives. And we'd just like to thank everybody for sharing their experiences and knowledge with us so far, and look forward to many more interactions and collaborations in the future.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you, Michelle and Elisa. Thank you for joining. And I think it's fair to say we've just grown our family of champions from around the world, and we'll be in close touch with all of you. It'd be fantastic to connect the 2 groups, well, actually all the groups around the world, and see how we can power unite the voice that we all have on a global scale. I think we have power in numbers. I think that collective voice is going to be very powerful. And I think for once we're going to start looking more towards population health, prevention, and the idea of not just focusing on the 1/3 of people who are sick at one time, but starting to look at the 2/3 of the population who are gonna get sick slowly. So what can we do to support them in their lives to have not just longer lives, but healthier and better quality lives? So thank you all for joining us, for being here. And I think I'll pass on to Gareth, and we can take some questions from the audience. Otherwise, we'll bounce off some questions within ourselves in the panel.
Oh, thanks a million, Bogdan. What a fantastic discussion. What a launch with colleagues around the world. Exciting times. I have a couple of questions, Bogdan, and I hope our colleagues can stay online as well. Students, really, it's questions to you guys. How do we help? How do we make this change? How do we create that value proposition for investment? We're all in a community, in a society, and we've just had the COP, for example. Let's put things into context here. We had a submission by 48 million healthcare professionals. That's a pretty big number, making a demand for change. How can we leverage that? Within our communities, use it the next generations. Also, the current system is all about cost containment. But what about the value that we create? We have seen through COVID-19 how critically important health and well-being is. In the UK, for example, billions of pounds invested into track and trace, for example. Why are we not seeing that shift, that investment shift go across the way? How do we build that model, that financial model that says, let's invest in health and well-being and prevention at scale. What is it that we can do, within our profession? You talk about, where does our pension funds? One of the biggest things I've learned in this journey with the SDGs is when I was in the public health sector and I worked with HSE and NHS. Every month I got my pay packet, and that's all I cared about. It was great. I was grand. I felt fantastic. I had no idea, where is my pension fund being invested? Is it in tobacco? Is it in coal? What is going on? Well, I need to ask the question. I go to my HR and I say, where is my pension fund being invested? So, I mean, this is about the knowledge and the wisdom of the next generation. We need to be asking the questions. If we're looking for finance, I had the conversation with James and Bogdan and all earlier, and all of us here, we're struggling. We can't get finance for investment into projects that we know improves people's health and well-being, which ultimately leads to people in jobs and then feeling good so that they can be more productive, which then, of course, drives the economy. Why are we struggling to make that business case? We should be able to articulate that from a dollar perspective, but also from a life improvement perspective, because the quality of life that we give people from social prescribing, it's there. It's not rocket science. If we invest in children's health and well-being, we offset suicide, we offset mental health. It costs a fortune to start treating these things. So let's start putting our heads together. The other pinch point for us as a community, 18 million staff are going to be short. In the US, 500,000 healthcare professionals have left during COVID-19. We are losing our most valuable asset, which is the staff. We have 93,000 vacancies in the NHS at the moment. Let's get creative. Why don't we use that recurring funding? Remember, the funding is recurring for the 93,000 posts. Why are we not leveraging those into the community and investing in 93,000 new jobs in social prescribing, for example? We could easily pick up artists and all over the world, the creative side, give them the opportunity. So Bogdan and colleagues, how do we do this? Bogdan, that's my question.
Yeah, I'll throw that to one of the students as well. I'll let Grace and Paul kind of share some thoughts. But what I will say, I think, is what we need to do now, Gareth, is get that united voice that we all have and share. And I think the power in numbers of the future generation is what's very powerful here from my side. I think we're going to have you and the others pushing from the top down. And what we're going to do is going to be, Michael Dixon often calls it the revolution of the peasants. So the students are the peasants. We will take that. I think we're the revolution of the peasants, the ones, on the ground, pushing from the grassroots. And if we, the students, can be that revolution of the peasants to kind of ask what we want, I think what we really want is that change in mindset and values amongst the future doctors of tomorrow, to not just be standing there with white coats, with pens lined up here, to tell people what to do, but to really flip it around and ask them, what would you like from me? What is it you value most? And how can I connect you to the local community? And how can I find out more about you that will help me? I'll go to Grace first and then Paul.
Thanks, Bogdan. Yeah, I think you're right. I think often as a student, you feel quite sort of disempowered, that you don't really have that sort of voice, and that there's more experienced sort of people above you that'll make the change. But I think it's sort of been shown time and time again, and with yourself and with the UK Social Prescribing Champion Scheme has shown that really it is recognising your role as the future workforce, and that you really do have a significant voice, and bringing particularly an international community together is going to really build momentum. And it's just those little tiny steps that all come together to build that momentum and really make that change.
Brilliant. Let's see, quick thoughts from around the room. Paul.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you, Grace. And I think, as we kind of mentioned before, advocating for social prescribing, even to senior colleagues and practicing physicians, as well as our peers, setting it up as something that they can do in their everyday practice, not just prescribing medications, even prescribing, social prescribing. So I think hopefully that can ensure that as more people adopt it, just the momentum of it increases.
Brilliant. Anyone else from the students? Let's see, Michelle, over to you. Any final thoughts?
Okay, yeah, I absolutely agree with everyone who shared today. I think most important is collaboration with other students, because each of us bring very different things to the table, and we can all definitely learn a lot from each other. Yeah.
Fantastic. Varshini, closing remarks.
Yeah, of course. I think I want to echo what everyone said. I think just collaboration with so many different partners, with students, medical students, students in social work, for instance. I think there's just so much to learn by collaborating with everyone from such intersectional perspectives. So I think being able to spread that word and working with different community partners as well can really make impact.
Elisa, final remarks.
Yeah, I think just tonight, listening to everyone and being able to share, it's brought a lot of hope, a lot of excitement for what lies ahead. And I think they're just very grateful to be at this intersection where we are starting something with so much potential. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in. It was such a pleasure to have you with us here. Look over on social media and also on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. We'll try and post the document so you can all access it. But we're very grateful for all your support, and we're grateful for all of you giving up your time to join us today. We seem to have an army put together ready to roll to push the importance of social determinants of health inequalities, personalized care, value-based care, social prescribing, sustainable development goals, and all those things that matter, that sometimes may not sound as sexy as stitching, but I promise they are, and they are important. So I think we should get excited as we get about surgery and other disciplines as well. So thank you all for joining. I'll pass over to Gareth for some final words from him, closing remarks, but thank you all. What a fabulous round of words from all over the world. Thank you all.
Yes, fantastic. Just to echo what Bogdan says, just a big thank you to everyone. And the other thing to say is, ask the question, who are the leaders out there making the change possible? Leaders create more leaders. This is what we need to encourage. Everyone on this panel here is a leader. And the other thing is, how are you helping the next generation of leaders? It's really important that we take the action now, because if you look at the scientific evidence, and regardless of what you think or say, we are warming the planet, okay? We need to take action now. We don't have time in 50 years. The Agenda 2030 is 2030 for a reason, okay? We do not want to see millions of people having to migrate from Asia across to Europe and so on, and Africa. Displacement, huge level, will cause enormous problems for peace and security. It's up to us to take the bull by the horns and take the responsibility and take action. Healthcare can be a huge driver of that. Let me just say again, the 48 million people who are colleagues who signed that proposition at COP, if we are the ones that take the action to put our pension funds into the Sustainable Development Goals, for example, just 1%, by the way, we will be able to leverage that change, right across the world. So now is the time for action, and I'm very much looking forward to working with colleagues around the world, and let's get going. Okay, thanks to everyone who's joined us, and we'll close our session. Thanks very much, everyone. Bye bye.